unique role of black religious leaders and congregations in civic engagement required targeted and well-resourced training, GOTV, and communications strategy. In this segment, we'll reflect on the journey taken to stand up this work, as well as engaging diverse denominations and hard-to-reach populations through the 2016 and 2020 elections. And we have three very distinguished people to join us. First of all, we want to hear from Reverend Tony Lee, my brother. How did Black Church Rocks and the Black Church Pac come to be in the first place?
Well, I believe that we sat and we looked, and with some of the leadership of just some dynamic folks, some of the founding members such as Bishop Noah Jones, Pastor Jamal Bryan, Bishop Leah Daughtry, Bishop Frank Reed, and others, under the leadership of Pastor Mike McBride, really thought about what was lacking and what needed to be activated in the Black church. One of the challenges we were realizing is that folks were starting to come to Black churches, utilizing Black churches, but not really maximizing Black churches. They would come and politicians would wave at Black churches, organizations would come and kind of use Black churches, but Black churches really weren't being maximized. And we understood that if we could utilize some of the technology and the science of political organizing, that really we could put together the kind of activation that really could maximize the work and the role of the Black church and a significant role inside community.
Dr. Tifani Jones-Blakes, what is unique about the process of engaging the Black church and the way we've done it with Black Church Rocks? What's made us different?
I actually think there are two things that make us different. One is that we really pull on the power of the people. We pull on the power of congregations. And yes, we may go through clergy leaders, but for the very most part, we recognize that it's when the people have a mind to work, that's when things get built. For instance, when you look at our numbers for the presidential election, which we were really instrumental in getting out the vote, 1.6 million text messages were sent out. Over 3,000 clergy leaders were trained. 1.3 million people engaged with us on social media. And it was from there that we really helped people realize and recognize the power to actually go out, knock on doors, and do those things to get the vote out. So that's one, is that I really feel like we pull on congregations, we pull on lay people, we pull on the power of the people to get it done. The second thing is that we really built on technology. And so when you think about what we produce with Rocks, Rocks being the database that has millions of Black church folks in there that we can use and leverage to help get stuff out as well. It's a one-of-a-kind thing. I don't think anyone else is doing it. So between pulling on the power of the people, using Rocks, that is what makes us unique in what it is that we do.
Krystal Knight, you developed the training and programmatic development. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a great comment. And I think Dr. Tifani really shared some of the things that we were able to do around organizing, but really one of the things that was key for us was utilizing the power of the church. If you're a member of a church, if you're a congregant or someone in leadership, you're already organizing. You're a natural organizer by the fact that you're a member or you hold some type of position. And so really what we were trying to do was translate the faith power into political power. And we did that through a series of things. So we taught folks how to build a coalition around issues that were really bubbling up or prevalent in their respective cities and communities and states. We also help folks understand how to run a voter registration drive, how to run a phone bank, how to canvass, and then how to transfer all of those general organizing things into a digital platform because of COVID. And so weekly we got on, digital platforms, helping people to understand that just because we're in the house, it doesn't mean that we still can't remind people to vote. So what does that mean around, absentee voting or mail-in voting, making sure that people felt engaged and finding ways that they could continue to understand the issues even while they were immobile or in a place where they had to really do much more digital organizing or verbal organizing. There were still ways for them to be active and to have their voices be heard through a number of platforms that did not require them to physically be present, but their presence was felt in the digital space.
Yeah. Reverend Tony, you mentioned how many of our churches really are victims of drive-bys by politicians. This program and everything that was done, Black Church Rocks, Black Church Pac, was there a real hunger for it within our churches and denominations to finally do something that they could really take offense, go on offense on politically?
Well, I think anytime you show people they have value and strength and tap into that, it electrified folks. And so we were able to see it electrified. But it was beautiful because it happened in various ways. So it happened, and because of COVID, it happened in very different ways. So even if you looked at some of the virtual concerts that we were able to have and how that engaged not just lay people, but also gospel artists and gospel influencers, how we were able to tap, say, the bus tour, in which we couldn't do the bus tour in the ways that we usually would do at the levels we would do, but still were able to make a presence felt in communities and people be able to come out, but people also be able to engage virtually. That you saw this hunger everywhere we went, every stop we made, every concert we had. If you looked at the numbers from some of those concerts that were virtual, it was incredible. If you looked at how people would be responding on some of the gospel shows, on Erica Campbell's morning show, when we'd be doing stuff on those kinds of pieces, that you saw this kind of electricity because people were hungry at saying, how can I make a difference? How can I have an impact in this current election cycle? I mean, that's what we saw.
What other differences did you see this make, Tifani, in terms of our community and our churches being more engaged?
Well, again, I mean, I think that more than anything, I think it proved that, again, and I know I keep going back to this, it's the people who have the power. And even though we may pull on the leaders, we may pull on influencers and others, it is when the people feel their power, because it's not that we're empowering them, they already have the power, but it's when they recognize the power they have that they rise up. And once they see victory in one section, it transfers to other things. And so take, for instance, there was a church in California, in Los Angeles, who really got involved with us with the election cycle. That was their first introduction to what it is that we're doing. But from their involvement in the election cycle, they built their own ministry, their own civic engagement ministry that continues the work. So now, even though it started kind of with the work that we're doing, it's continuing in their own local communities and their own, local congregations. And I feel like, that's the biggest change, is that we help people recognize the power that they have. We give them resources to really run with it, and then they're able to take what it is that we've learned, take what it is that, Krystal trained them in, and to do their own activism that's needed in local community.
And that's key too, Krystal, because in a lot of situations we in the church may have known our power, but just did not know how to implement it.
Absolutely. And because people were able to recognize this untapped resources, untapped power, we see candidates like Senator Raphael Warnock elected to the U.S. Senate. In the state of Georgia, first African American, really breaking ground, not only as a black man and as the first in his state, but also as a sitting minister, a sitting pastor of a church, of a congregation. And so what does that mean for, the Black church movement? That means other faith leaders will have, the ceiling is broken for them. That's what it means, that they will be able to recognize that they don't only have a platform at the pulpit, but they have a platform in the political office as well. And that is really, really important when we're thinking about activating faith power into political power. It's not just reserved for one arena of life. Really, the people that you're speaking with every single week about their faith journey and their faith walk, you also have the opportunity and the audience to help them through their political walk and help them understand that you can translate, again, faith into political action, because this is something that you're a part of already in your community, and you just need to activate it. So it's moving from one area to another, really harnessing all that you're already doing.
You know, the Black Church has always been our most significant and most long-standing political institution. But Tony, it seems now we figured out a way to help people really understand that. All of our movements have started in the pulpit in the Black Church, but now this kind of codifies it even more and makes it more meaningful, doesn't it?
But I think that what was beautiful is that you were able to take the old landmark and be able to utilize it in a fresh, kind of relevant way for this moment. It's very similar to like Joshua. So Joshua stands at Jericho with the children of Israel. And he's standing with a new generation, a generation that was not there for the battle at the Red Sea when the sea opened up. This is a generation that grew up in the wilderness. This is a generation that didn't see the plagues and God do what God did with Pharaoh and all that kind of stuff. This is a generation that didn't see when Moses held up the rod and the sea opened up, or when Moses smacked the rod on the stone and the water came forward. But that's what the previous generation saw. This generation gets to Jericho, about to go into the promised land, and God doesn't tell Joshua to grab a rod. God says, as I was with Moses, I'll be with you. But you don't have to grab a rod, because the power wasn't in the methodology. The power was in the God behind the method. And he tells them, have the people walk around the city 7 times. And on the 7th time, in other words, this time the power was in the people. It wasn't just in that leader. It wasn't just going to be a Moses to come out and do this. This time it was going to be the people's voice. And when the people were able to find their voice, then that's when the walls of Jericho came tumbling down. That's what I believe we've been able to do for a whole nother generation, is help them to see that as God was with Moses, God will be with us. But that you can find your voice, and that God can do it in a different way. So it used to be that you were knocking on doors, and now it's text banking, now it's phone banking. That it's a different methodology, but the same power.
Y'all see what he did? He got his preach on.
I'm like,
I'm going to find it.
Caught the word.
And there was an organ out of called my key, but you know,
I know that's right. I know that's right. But Dr. Tifani, we know that, you know, some of our sisters and brothers weren't always eager to come along.
That's true.
Has this opened more doors? Some of us thought, well, you know, we come to church, we can't be political, we can't do anything, we can't talk about these things. But is this kind of gradually even bringing some of those folk along?
I believe that it is, but I also believe that there still needs to be training around what it means to actually do the work, right? What it means, like, how does it fit into, and it's funny to say this, because the basis of the Bible, Christianity, and you know, faith in general, spirituality, is social justice. Jesus was a justice worker, right? But there's still some education that's needed in that way. I think there's education needed around, you know, what does it mean to stand for a certain issue? What does that mean for your 501c3, right? What does that mean? And so although people are more excited to come along, I think that there's still some hesitation, because they don't really understand kind of the nuances of intersecting faith with politics, or faith with justice, or faith with civic engagement.
And lastly, Krystal, that's why this is ongoing, right? To continue to enlighten people as to what it's really all about. Absolutely.
We want to, and we will, continue to train and motivate as many faith leaders and congregations, so that social justice committees, political action committees can spring up in churches. And that's one of the things, that's the beauty of the work, right? There's evidence in what we did, not only in seeing people like Raphael Warnock elected, but also just seeing more lay people, as Reverend Tony has stated, be engaged. They understand now how a bill becomes law. They understand how do you affect, you know, who do I talk to about the traffic light in my respective school district? Or who do I talk to about a water issue? What committee does it sit in? How can I influence that issue based upon the knowledge that I have, based upon the things that are important to my congregation? And so moving forward, we absolutely will continue to train and recruit new folks who want to be politically engaged, because now people understand that when we harness our power together, when we put our power behind a particular issue, change can actually happen. And that's the beauty of politics, is that there's evidence when you can see something actually move, and there's also evidence when you can see someone get elected.
Krystal Knight, the Reverend Dr. Tifani Jones Blakes, and Pastor Tony Lee, thank you all for being here. Thank you for all your hard work too. Let's keep this going.